Consumer Reports just dropped a list that truck buyers have been begging for, and it completely flips the script on what people think they know about reliability. These are not hype machines. These are not influencer favorites. These are the trucks with engines that just refuse to die, the ones that rack up mileage so high it scares mechanics, the ones owners keep for decades because nothing ever goes wrong. What makes this reveal so shocking is that Consumer Reports did not look at brand reputation or marketing promises. They analyzed years of owner-reported data, real-world failures, long-term durability, and engine-specific reliability records. Not how a truck feels on a test drive, but how it performs after years of towing, hauling, idling, freezing winters, brutal summers, and endless abuse. And the results are eye-opening. Right at the top are trucks powered by naturally aspirated engines that manufacturers have been quietly perfecting for years. No overworked turbos, no fragile complexity, just proven engineering that keeps running long after the payments end. These engines are known for thick engine blocks, conservative tuning, and stress levels far below their breaking point, which is exactly why owners see 300,000, 400,000, even 500,000 miles with routine maintenance. Several of the trucks on this list come from brands people already trust, but not always for the reasons they think. It is not about luxury trims or massive screens. It is about engines that have stayed largely unchanged for a decade or more, allowing manufacturers to eliminate weaknesses year after year. Consumer Reports highlights that consistency is the secret weapon here, because every redesign introduces risk, and these engines avoided that trap. One of the biggest surprises is how dominant older engine platforms are compared to newer, downsized alternatives. While many automakers chase fuel economy with smaller, highly stressed motors, these trucks stuck with displacement, durability, and simplicity. Consumer Reports data shows fewer catastrophic failures, fewer oil consumption issues, and dramatically lower long-term repair costs. Another key pattern jumps out immediately. Trucks built in certain production windows outperform others by a wide margin. Consumer Reports points out that when an engine reaches peak maturity, reliability spikes. Owners report fewer breakdowns, smoother performance even at high mileage, and engines that feel almost unchanged after years of hard use. These are the sweet spot trucks smart buyers hunt for. Maintenance also plays a major role, but not in the way you might think. These engines are forgiving. Miss an oil change by a few hundred miles and they keep going. Tow heavy loads consistently and they still hold compression. That margin for error is exactly what separates a forever engine from one that looks good on paper but fails in the real world. What really shocks people is which popular trucks did not make the list. Some of the most advertised, most talked about models fell short due to long-term engine issues that only show up after years of ownership. Consumer Reports makes it clear that initial quality does not equal long-term reliability, and buyers who confuse the two often pay the price later. These trucks are not just reliable when new, they are reliable when old, tired, scratched, and long past their warranty. They are the trucks you see still working on farms, construction sites, and small businesses decades later, because replacing them simply does not make financial sense. And as we keep going through this list, the patterns become even clearer, because the next trucks Consumer Reports revealed push this idea of forever-lasting engines even further. With powertrains so durable, they have become legends among owners and mechanics alike. Several of these legendary engines have something else in common, and Consumer Reports makes a point to emphasize it. They were designed before automakers began aggressively chasing short-term efficiency gains at the expense of long-term durability. These engines were built with thicker internals, lower compression stress, and cooling systems that were intentionally overbuilt. That extra margin is the reason they survive abuse that would cripple newer designs. One standout category in the list is mid-sized trucks that punch far above their weight in reliability. Owners report engines that feel almost underworked even after years of daily driving and heavy hauling. Consumer Reports notes that these trucks often avoid the complexity of modern half-ton platforms, which gives them a huge advantage when it comes to longevity. Fewer components mean fewer failure points, and that simplicity translates directly into years of trouble-free operation. Full-size trucks dominate the list for a different reason. Their engines were designed with commercial use in mind, not just weekend hauling. Consumer Reports highlights that these power plants were tested under extreme conditions long before reaching consumers, which explains why so many of them age so gracefully. High oil capacity, conservative red lines, and proven transmissions all play a role in keeping these trucks on the road far longer than expected. Another revelation from the data is how strongly reliability correlates with engine lineage. Engines that have been in production for multiple generations consistently outperform all new designs. engines. Consumer Reports explains that early failures get engineered out over time, leaving behind platforms that are nearly bulletproof. By the time these engines reach their later production years, most of the unknowns are gone. What really sets these trucks apart is how they behave at high mileage. Consumer Reports data shows minimal loss of power, stable oil pressure, and remarkably low rates of internal engine failure. Owners often report that suspensions, interiors, and electronics wear out long before the engine shows any signs of giving up. In many cases, the truck gets replaced while the engine is still running strong. Fuel choice also plays a role, and Consumer Reports points out that many of the most reliable engines avoid extreme tuning for premium fuel or high boost. Regular fuel compatibility, predictable combustion, and robust timing systems all contribute to long-term health. These engines were designed to run clean and steady, not on the edge of failure. The list also exposes a major buying mistake many people make. Shoppers often chase horsepower numbers or the newest engine technology, assuming newer means better. Consumer Reports data proves the opposite. In long-term ownership, proven engines outperform cutting-edge designs almost every time, especially when trucks are kept beyond the typical lease period. As the rankings continue, Consumer Reports starts revealing trucks that have earned their reputation not through marketing, but through survival. These are the models mechanics recommend when customers ask which truck will last the longest. These are the engines that get passed down to second and third owners with confidence, because their track record is already written in hundreds of thousands of miles. Consumer Reports also dives into how these engines handle neglect, and this is where the gap becomes impossible to ignore. While no engine likes abuse, the ones on this list tolerate real life better than most. Missed services, harsh climates, constant stop-and-go driving, heavy trailers, dusty job sites. These engines keep firing. That resilience is not an accident. It is the result of conservative engineering decisions that prioritize durability over headline numbers. Another critical detail Consumer Reports highlights is cooling system reliability. Many trucks fail not because the engine is weak, but because cooling systems are undersized or overly complex. The most reliable trucks on this list use straightforward, high-capacity cooling setups that maintain stable temperatures even under sustained load. That stability protects internal components and dramatically extends engine life. Transmission pairing is another reason these trucks stand out. Consumer Reports notes that engines do not exist in isolation. Several trucks earned their spot because the engine and transmission were engineered together, not forced into compatibility later. Smooth shifting, lower heat buildup, and fewer internal stresses mean the entire drivetrain ages more slowly. One of the most eye-opening findings is how rarely these engines suffer from catastrophic failure. Consumer Reports data shows that when issues do arise, they are often minor and manageable rather than terminal. Sensors, hoses, or wear items fail, but the engine core keeps going. That distinction is what separates a long-lasting engine from one that becomes a financial nightmare. Owners consistently describe the same experience across brands and segments. The truck may rattle, the paint may fade, the interior may show its age, but the engine starts every morning, idles smoothly, and pulls just as hard as it did years ago. Consumer Reports emphasizes that this kind of consistency is rare in modern vehicles. Another pattern becomes clear when looking at fleet usage. Many of the trucks on this list are heavily used by fleets, contractors, and rural operators who cannot afford downtime. These buyers choose based on experience, not marketing. Consumer Reports data confirms that fleet-adopted engines tend to last longer because they are designed for continuous operation rather than occasional use. The list also challenges the assumption that diesel is always the most durable option. While some diesel engines perform extremely well, Consumer Reports shows that several gasoline engines now rival or exceed diesel longevity without the added complexity or maintenance costs. That shift surprises many buyers who associate diesel with indestructibility. As Consumer Reports continues breaking down the rankings, one thing becomes unavoidable. The trucks with forever-lasting engines are not the loudest, flashiest, or most technologically overloaded. They are the ones built with restraint, proven components, and a deep understanding of how trucks are actually used every single day. And the next group on this list pushes that philosophy even further. But Consumer Reports then zeroes in on owner loyalty, and the numbers tell a powerful story. Many of the trucks on this list have some of the highest repeat buyer rates in the entire industry. Owners do not just keep these trucks longer, they replace them with the same model when the time finally comes. That kind of loyalty only exists when engines deliver year after year without drama. Another factor that separates these engines is how they age internally. Consumer Reports data shows exceptionally low rates of sludge buildup, timing system failures, and internal wear. Oil analysis reports from long-term owners reveal stable metal levels even at extreme mileage. That means bearings, cylinder walls, and valve train components are holding up far beyond expectations. Cold starts are another hidden killer for engines, and Consumer Reports specifically examined how these trucks perform in freezing conditions. The most reliable engines fire quickly, maintain oil pressure, and avoid the knocking or hesitation that often signals long-term damage. That reliability in extreme temperatures plays a major role in why these engines survive for decades. The list also highlights how these trucks handle modification and work-related upgrades. Larger tires, suspension changes, added weight, and aftermarket accessories often shorten engine life, yet many engines on this list continue performing reliably even when pushed beyond factory configurations. Consumer Reports attributes this to conservative factory tuning that leaves room for additional strain. One of the most overlooked advantages is parts availability. Engines that last forever are often supported forever. Consumer Reports points out that these trucks benefit from massive aftermarket and OEM support, making repairs affordable and straightforward even many years later. That support ecosystem extends engine life simply because owners can fix small issues before they become major problems. There is also a clear geographic pattern in the data. Trucks that perform well in high altitude regions, extreme heat, and heavy towing zones dominate the reliability rankings. Consumer Reports confirms that engines capable of handling these conditions tend to thrive everywhere else, because they are rarely pushed to their limits in normal driving. As the list continues, Consumer Reports begins revealing trucks that quietly outperform expectations. Models that never top sales charts but deliver exceptional long-term value. These are the trucks mechanics recommend off the record, the ones they trust enough to buy for themselves. And what makes the next entries on this list even more compelling is that they expose a growing divide in the truck market, where durability-focused engineering is slowly disappearing, making these forever-lasting engines more valuable than ever. Consumer Reports warns that this divide is accelerating as manufacturers chase electrification, downsized turbo engines, and increasingly complex emission systems. The number of truly long-lasting internal combustion engines is shrinking. That makes the trucks on this list not just reliable, but increasingly rare. Buyers who understand this are holding onto these models longer, driving up demand in the used market. Another insight from the data is resale strength. Trucks with forever-lasting engines do not depreciate like normal vehicles. Consumer Reports shows that high mileage examples still command strong prices because buyers trust the engine more than the odometer. When an engine has a proven history of survival, mileage becomes less intimidating. The list also reveals how these engines respond to heavy towing over long periods. Many modern engines advertise impressive tow ratings, but Consumer Reports data exposes which ones actually hold up under sustained load. The most reliable trucks maintain oil pressure, stable temperatures, and consistent power delivery even when towing near their limits year after year. Consumer Reports also looked at engine failures per 100,000 vehicles, and the gap is staggering. The trucks on this list show dramatically lower failure rates compared to industry averages. In some cases, the difference is so large it suggests fundamentally different design philosophies rather than minor quality differences. Another surprising detail is how quiet these engines remain over time. Owners report minimal increase in vibration or noise even after years of use. Consumer Reports explains that this is often a sign of balanced rotating assemblies and robust engine mounts, which reduce long-term stress on internal components. The data also highlights oil consumption trends. Many modern engines develop oil consumption issues as they age, but the engines on this list maintain stable oil levels well into high mileage. That consistency points to strong piston ring design and cylinder wall durability, two critical factors in engine longevity. As Consumer Reports continues revealing entries, a theme becomes impossible to ignore. These engines were not built to impress in press releases. They were built to last through neglect, heavy work, and time itself. They represent an era of engineering that prioritized endurance over excitement, and the next trucks on this list take that endurance to another level because they combine these forever-lasting engines with chassis and drivetrains that are just as stubbornly durable. Consumer Reports then connects engine longevity to the rest of the truck, and this is where the picture becomes complete. An engine can be nearly indestructible, but if the surrounding components fail early, ownership still becomes painful. The trucks that rank highest pair their forever-lasting engines with frames, axles, and drivetrains designed to survive the same abuse. That balance is rare, and it is exactly why these models rise to the top. Another standout detail is how these engines handle idle time. Many trucks spend hours idling on job sites, in traffic, or during cold starts. Consumer Reports data shows that the most reliable engines tolerate extended idle without excessive wear, overheating, or oil degradation. That trait alone adds years to an engine's life. The list also highlights how predictable these engines are. Owners describe consistent performance from year 1 to year 10. No sudden drops in fuel economy, no mystery warning lights, no unexplained power loss. Consumer Reports notes that predictability is one of the most valuable forms of reliability because it allows owners to plan maintenance instead of reacting to breakdowns. There is also a strong link between engine simplicity and diagnostic ease. When problems do arise, they are easier to identify and fix. Consumer Reports emphasizes that engines with straightforward layouts and accessible components spend less time in the shop and cost less to maintain over their lifetime. That practical advantage compounds over hundreds of thousands of miles. Another important factor is fuel system design. Several engines on this list avoid ultra-high pressure systems that are sensitive to fuel quality. Consumer Reports shows that these engines are less prone to injector failures and pump issues, especially in regions where fuel quality varies. That tolerance makes them far more reliable in real-world conditions. The trucks on this list also benefit from conservative service intervals that actually protect the engine instead of pushing limits. Consumer Reports data shows that owners who follow basic maintenance schedules often exceed expected engine life by wide margins. These engines reward consistency rather than demanding perfection. As the rankings move forward, Consumer Reports begins to reveal trucks that quietly outperform even their own reputation. Models often dismissed as boring or outdated turn out to be some of the most durable machines on the road. These are the trucks that prove excitement fades, but reliability compounds. And with the next group of trucks, the gap between marketing hype and real-world durability becomes impossible to ignore. Consumer Reports makes it clear that marketing rarely tells the truth about longevity. Advertisements focus on torque numbers, tech features, and aggressive styling, but none of that predicts whether an engine will survive 15 or 20 years of use. The trucks on this list earned their place through quiet consistency, not flashy claims. Another revealing metric is how these engines perform after warranty expiration. Consumer Reports data shows that failure rates remain low long after coverage ends, which is exactly when ownership costs usually spike. That post-warranty reliability is what transforms a truck from a purchase into a long-term asset. The list also uncovers a strong connection between engine tuning and stress management. Engines that deliver power smoothly rather than in sharp bursts experience less internal shock over time. Consumer Reports notes that linear power delivery reduces strain on bearings, rods, and valve train components, significantly extending engine life. One of the most valuable insights comes from long-term owners who push these trucks far beyond normal expectations. High mileage examples consistently report engines that still meet factory compression specs. Consumer Reports confirms that this level of durability is increasingly rare in modern vehicles. Another overlooked advantage is how these engines handle heat cycles. Frequent short trips can be just as damaging as heavy towing, yet the engines on this list show minimal wear under both conditions. Consumer Reports attributes this to robust metallurgy and oil circulation design. The data also shows fewer recalls tied directly to engine internals. While no vehicle is recall-free, the trucks on this list have avoided widespread engine-related recalls that plague newer platforms. That stability reflects mature designs that have already endured years of real-world testing. As Consumer Reports continues unveiling the rankings, it becomes obvious that these engines are not just surviving, they are aging gracefully. Owners describe engines that feel broken in rather than worn out, delivering smooth performance even at extreme mileage. And the next trucks on this list raise an uncomfortable question for the industry, because they prove that building for everlasting engines is still possible, even as many manufacturers choose not to. Consumer Reports suggest that cost pressure, emissions regulations, and rapid product cycles are pushing manufacturers away from this kind of long-term engineering. That is what makes the trucks on this list stand out so sharply. They represent deliberate choices to prioritize durability even when it was not the easiest or cheapest path. Another powerful trend in the data is how these engines respond to age-related maintenance. Timing components, gaskets, and seals last longer than expected, reducing the number of major teardown events over an engine engine's lifetime. Consumer Reports highlights that fewer invasive repairs directly correlate with longer engine survival. The list also reveals that many of these engines were originally designed with far more capability than most owners ever use. That unused capacity acts as a buffer against wear. Consumer Reports explains that when an engine operates well below its maximum stress level, longevity increases exponentially. One of the most compelling findings involves second and third owners. Reliability often collapses after a vehicle changes hands, yet these trucks continue performing reliably across multiple ownership cycles. Consumer Reports data shows that even when maintenance history is incomplete, these engines keep going. There is also a cultural impact tied to these trucks. Owners build trust in them, then build businesses around them. Contractors, farmers, and tradespeople depend on engines that start every day without hesitation. Consumer Reports acknowledges that this trust is earned over decades, not model years.